A week ago, Montanans near Billings noticed what appeared to be a balloon flying over the state. With what ended up being a Chinese spy balloon now shot down over the Atlantic, senators are demanding the Biden administration give some answers to what exactly happened. Michael Anthony digs into it.
Thank you all for being
On
here
Thursday,
today for
the
this,
Senate Defense Appropriations Subcommittee met with military officials looking for answers as to why a suspected Chinese spy balloon was allowed to fly over the United States. Senator John Tester, chairman of the subcommittee, pressed them on the purpose of the device.
Did we know what they're trying to collect? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. We understand that this is a broader part of a broader suite of operations that China is undertaking.
While some questions were left unanswered due to the classified nature of the situation, Lieutenant General Douglas Sims II, the Director of Operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, explained shooting down the balloon over Montana or Alaska would have posed a bigger risk to people on the ground over the amount of intelligence the Chinese would have gained.
As the assessment for risk to U.S. personnel outweighed the potential intelligence loss, the recommendation was made to shoot the balloon down over an area that minimized the risk to U.S. citizens.
Senator John Hoeven expressed concern on how that decision could give countries like Russia or China a chance to test the waters on what can fly through American airspace.
So we created a situation now where our adversaries are going to kind of try to figure out what they can and can't fly over our airspace. Well, maybe a balloon. What are they going to try next?
At the conclusion of the hearing, Tester said that he was not sold on the handling of the espionage episode. Recovery and investigation of the balloon continues on the East Coast and could take weeks, according to the panel. I'm Michael Anthony, reporting for your news leader.
Montana Senator Steve Daines attended a security briefing on the balloon this afternoon, saying he was left with more questions than answers, and he said that Montanans deserve more answers to the balloon's intent.